Hello, welcome back to A Course in Miracles. Here I'm Reverend Tomas Garza, and we've arrived at lesson 350 today in the workbook. It's really quite remarkable when you think of it. And I invite you to look at your entire spiritual practice, indeed your entire life, because as you may know, I equate the two. Same, life, spiritual practice. Yeah. I invite you to think of things in terms of where were you when you began, right? What was your mindset? What was your life like? What was your forgiveness like? Was there any? What was your patience like? What was your outlook on life like? And what is it now after you have been practicing? Now, this could be for 350 days, or it could be for a year or two, or even just a couple of weeks. I invite you to think of where were you before you began your practice, and where are you now? It's a valuable thing to do every now and then because we get carried away. Even people that have been practicing a certain tradition for years and years, decades, can still get carried away. We all do. We get swept away in what's going on in our lives. I mean, it could be our Facebook feed, but it's often the larger things that we give them a larger importance, don't we? Such as things that are immediate, like paying the bills, or if you have a job where you go out of the home and go to an office or a different setting, you've got to do that. Right? If you work at home, you got to turn on the camera and microphone. Got to do Zoom, got to pick up the phone, all kinds of things. And we get swept away. And when we think about our own spirituality, when we think about our own life and practice, we can tend to berate ourselves, unnecessarily so, can't we? We can tend to say, well, this is really not doing anything. Well, is that the case? It's not like you have to see quantum leaps every 15 minutes. If you do, fabulous. Let me know that you're doing that and that's happening for you, because I want to interview you for this video series. Now, if that's not happening for you, don't worry about it, because often what's going on is unseen, isn't it? It's unseen, it's behind the scenes, so to speak. It's under the surface, so to speak. Every time you forgive, every time you extend love, every time you pray, every time you meditate, or whatever spiritual practice looks like for you, everything contributes. Nothing is lost. You're always doing something very constructive on some level. It may not be immediately obvious. So if you are feeling, and I get the sense that some of you are feeling like your practice is ineffective, it's very common. It's very common, isn't it, to think that, well, this really isn't doing anything for me. Is that the case? Is that really the case? Take a look at where were you when you started this, and where are you now? Even if you just started yesterday, you can still apply the same question. You can still think about it in the same way. Well, where were you yesterday when you began? What made you begin? Yeah. What was your mindset like? How has it changed? How has it changed? All this because we're on lesson 350, which means we're almost at the beginning of the workbook. By the way, if you haven't seen any of these videos, I'm calling the end the beginning to make a point. Yeah, illustrate a point. It's not the end. It's the beginning of the next phase. In fact, there are no phases. It's just what you're doing in the moment. Once you reach the end of the workbook, lesson 365, and do your final practice period, you're not done with spiritual practice, are you? We're never done with it because we're never done with life. So, lesson 350, we're going to talk about forgiveness again. We need to, don't we? All right, lesson 350, miracles mirror God's eternal love. To offer them is to remember him, and through his memory, to save the world. Beautiful, right? Miracles mirror God's eternal love. To offer them is to remember him, and through his memory, to save the world. His memory, we don't mean God's memory, we mean our memory of God, our remembering, our waking up to the truth of who we are, which is oneness with God. So what's a miracle? Well, we've talked a lot about this. For the purposes of this practice session, for the purposes of this video, let's call it forgiveness. Forgiveness is a miracle. I mean, isn't it? You're making an active, conscious choice in the present moment to see things as they are, not how you'd have them be. You're looking beyond the illusion to the truth that you and your brother are one. The prayer that accompanies lesson 350 goes into this a little bit. When we forgive, we incorporate everything into ourselves. Doesn't mean you take on somebody's neck or back pain. If somebody is suffering from a lot of stress in their life, doesn't mean you take that on. That's not what I mean. It means as you forgive, as you offer miracles, you remember. We begin to remember who we are and recognize that there is no separation of any kind. And even though we think that there has been, there never has been. That it's never taken place in truth. So every time we forgive, we offer a miracle. How many miracles does it take until you wake up completely? Who knows? A lot. But it need only take one in truth. So these kinds of progress measuring questions are of limited use to us on the path, aren't they? They're of highly limited use because it is helpful if you're feeling discouraged to look at where you were when you started and compare it to where you are now. Are you a more loving, more open person, lighter, more forgiving, more joyful, patient, more cool? I don't know, things like that. Are you? And it's of limited use because who we really are is beyond all numbers. It's beyond all concepts. And what we're doing as we offer forgiveness, as we offer miracles to ourselves, to everyone in the world, to the world itself, we're laying our illusions, our judgments to the side. One of the things that's really been on my mind and my practice recently is the prayer, the highly effective and beautiful prayer of asking for help. Ask your guide or guides for help in setting all of your judgments aside. How do we remember God? Well, we forgive. We change our mind. We change our perception of who we are, of who everyone else is. We discover that everyone else is just a phrase, is just a series of sounds that we use to designate things in the world, so that when we show up and teach, like I'm doing right now, people can relate to us. What you see talking to you looks like a human body. It looks like it's what we call a male human body. It looks like what we call a middle-aged male human body, right? It's not who I am. It's not who we really truly are. I'm using it as a communications device. It's a mechanism to reach you. We need them in the world. We need them because people need to hear the message. They need to receive the message. Call it the word of God, however you want to describe it. They need to get it in a palatable, familiar form so that they can relate to it. If you're doing a little bit of verbal math with me, which I encourage you to do, means the world needs you. Yes, there is a specific reason why you are here. There is a specific reason why you're watching this video. There are specific people that you're to reach. Do you know who they are? Well, you don't have to know exactly. Each of us has only to answer the call. That can look very differently for you than it does for me. Not everyone in this world is going to teach A Course in Miracles, right? Not everyone in this world is going to be a reverend. Not everyone in this world is going to teach meditation or anything like that. However, we still have the same present moment opportunity to extend love, to work miracles, to extend the miracle of forgiveness to everything we see, everything we taste, touch, feel, hear, think about. Totally. We have the same opportunity to do that. What happens when we do that? We remember the truth of who we are. And I wish this for all of you, but I don't have to wish it because it is certain. Thank you for joining me.